You've had a busy day, you want to relax, you get home, you go to your favorite restaurant, you go to a cafe, the library, goodness knows where you go. But anyway, you get a message on your phone introducing something calling the killing vote. You're curious, you're wondering what is it? You see the name of a perpetrator, Beggy Chul, a distributor of child pornography, and you're given an opportunity to take part in a vote for or against his execution. You're probably thinking, oh, is this spam? I wonder what this is. And curiosity killed the cat, and why not? You probably click the execution button, not thinking anything of it.
어쨌든 야, 너 설마 누른 거 아니지? 언니가 난리쳐서 못 눌렀잖아.
A time limit's imposed of an hour. Unknown to you, Baegi Chul has actually been kidnapped. After the hours passed, 84% of the population has voted in favor of his death.
남들도 다 그렇게 생각할걸?
This is the killing vote. Hey fam, it's been a while. It's your girl Blake. I'm back with another video, another banger. Another banger, baby. Okay, I'm not sure if it's going to be a banger, but we're here to talk about the Korean drama, The Killing Vote. Have you heard about The Killing Vote? I was actually, if I'm going to be honest, I saw a person with a dog mask on Netflix, and I thought, oh, it's just another one of those crazy variety shows, so I didn't even bother to click it. And then I went out for coffee with a mate, and she was like, have you watched The Killing Vote? It's absolutely amazing. You know that I'm not really into romantic dramas, but this is so gripping. It will keep your attention. Well, it will have you fully hooked. So I said, all right then, I'll give it a go. And lo and behold, she wasn't telling anything but the truth, strictly facts. I watched the drama, and the drama is dramaing. Imagine a world where you get to vote twice a month on whether a criminal lives or dies. And if 50% of the population vote in favour of the execution, that's it. The criminal is taken off the map. Do you think you would vote? This is the basic premise of the Korean drama, The Killing Vote. The Korean name is, can I say it? 국민사형투표. Anyway, grab a drink and let's jump into the rabbit hole of vigilante justice. Episode 1, let the killing vote begin. So the killing vote opens with a chilling scene from 8 years ago. We see the police detective Moo Chan chasing down an assailant who's in the act of, he's in the act of stabbing a victim to death. He's gone full drill on this one. All he needed was a balaclava. And then we transition into the present day, and we see a girl with a bright coloured wig dancing in front of the webcam. It's some sort of webcam racket, and she's talking to the people in the chat. It sounds like she's trying to give subtle hints as to her location. Luckily, Moo-chan comes in, busts into the place just as the pimp guy is about to put a slap on the undercover detective Joo-hyun, because she's not taking off her clothes for the cam, is she? Whilst Moo-chan is taking on the perpetrators, Joo-hyun is trying to get the digital evidence. But whilst she's there, she notices that Moo-chan isn't just trying to collect evidence, he's actually planting evidence. And she takes a sneaky video of him doing that. Now, obviously, I'm thinking, it looks like Moo-chan's a bit of a dirty cop. Why is he planting evidence? But, I guess he's willing to do anything to get his guy. Is it morally questionable? Definitely yes, but we see here already from the outset that Moo-chan has some questionable morals when it comes to carrying out his work ethic, whereas Joo-hyun, on the other hand, seems to be opposed to this kind of dirty tactics. Anyway, before she's able to take away the video evidence, captures it and takes her phone captive, we learn at this point, like I said, that she's opposed to this dirty work ethic because she's got a reputation for being a whistleblower. So anyway, Moo-chan's got the head of the webcam, Andrew oops, I shouldn't say that. I gotta be careful. Don't want to get sued. I haven't even got any money. But yeah, similarly to Andrew Tate, Yeah, allegedly. So during the interrogation with the king of the webcam, Moo Chan tries to railroad him into a confession. And at one point, he uses unconventional methods by banging his head off the desk in the interview room and trying to pin assault on a police officer onto the perpetrator in order to force a confession. Talk about duress. He really is by any means necessary kind of guy. Then we're introduced to the guy that I've mentioned already, Bae Gi-chul.
20만 건의 동영상 판매에도 불구하고 고작 1년 6개월이라는 짧은 형을 마치고 나오는 백이철에게 국민들은 모두 분노하고 있습니다.
Who's the distributor of child pornography. He's been released from prison early, and as such, the police are here to escort him. Outside, there's numerous protesters and they're highly agitated, and can you blame them? Because who wouldn't be agitated if a notorious distributor of child pornography gets early release from prison? We're talking 18 months. It's ridiculously lenient. So it kicks off there, and at that point one of the protesters manages to get their hands on the nonce and they're assaulting him, and Moo Chan is torn whether to assist or just to watch. He eventually picks Gi-chul up off the floor, puts him in the car, and they escort him. And we also come to find out that the reason why Gi-chul's been released early from prison is somewhat related to a mysterious inmate called Professor Kwan. So I'm curious, who exactly is this Professor Kwan? Anyway, moments after his release, we learn that he's already got servers back up and running. He's just ready to continue with his life of crime. He has not been rehabilitated at all, not in the slightest. Apparently he got released early because of something to do with his wife. But the moment he gets in the car, we see that she's just some kind of sex worker that he's got no respect for at all. So anyway, he's back straight into business, planning on how to distribute more illegal materials.
너 대한민국 짭새들이 문제가 뭔지 알아? 애들이 창의력이 딸려요. 감히 상상도 못할 때 허를 팍.
Meanwhile, we see that Joo-hyun's parents are absent and she's got a younger sister that she's looking after called Joo-min. And due to her sister's work with the cybercrime department, she's asked her to look at her computer, which has been infected with some virus. Whilst Joo-hyun's trying to clear the virus, she stumbles across a file, a text file, which seems out of place because of the size of it. So she reformats it to a video format, and a video pops up of a guy wearing a dog mask, talking about his hate for criminals receiving light sentences and his desire to rectify the injustices of the legal system.
죽어마다가는 구제의 악마가 잘 쫓아와서 돌아다니는 걸 생각하면 그 생각만 하면 참을 수가 없어. 기다려. 내가 너 잡으러 간다.
Now, this has sparked Joo-hyun's interest and she starts to investigate it on her own, but her boss is not too happy about it. He tells her that if they try to investigate every single cycle, they'll never be able to solve any real cases, so he just dismisses it basically. And this doesn't stop our girl. She takes herself to the main station, to the Nambu police agency. Okay, fast forward, we see a little bit of Bae Gi-chul's character because he's coming home and his wife's outside, but prior to his arrival, Moo Chan talks to the wife and tries to get her to help the police investigation by securing some sort of evidence, and that he'll help her to get citizenship or to be able to stay safely in Korea because she's obviously of foreign descent. So he leaves her and the husband comes and he's being a son of a beep and he's slapping her silly. And Moo Chan, being the kind of man that he is, he looks back, he smashes the CCTV, and then he goes and pummels him. And can you blame him? I can't blame him. I can't blame him on this one. I'm a little bit, how can I say? I'm not torn. I'm against police planting evidence because it can obviously backfire if police get away with planting evidence. Sometimes the innocent could end up finding themselves in a precarious position, couldn't they? So I'm totally against that. But slapping a criminal around a little bit here and there, maybe I'm a little bit more understanding to that. The next day, Bae Gi-chul turns up at Nambu Police Agency at the same time, so does Joo-hyun, and she sees that Gi-chul is accusing Moo Chan of assault, which he denies, but obviously his knuckles are showing the actions what he took last night. But then the killing vote starts. Suddenly, the whole nation gets a text message, and on it, it's talking about let's execute Bae Gi Chol for distributing child pornography. And I must say, if you was trying to get everyone on board with this kind of situation, then this type of crime is perfect because it riles everyone up. It's a really provocative subject, isn't it? And it gets the emotions. Not provocative, no, it's evocative. It's both evocative and provocative at the same time, this kind of situation. Anything to do with the abuse of children. And you'll have the support of the nation, wouldn't you? The only people who would probably be against it is the kiddie fiddlers. So anyway, by the time Joo-hyun arrives at her workplace, 84% of the population's already clicked the button voting for the demise or execution of Bae Gi Chol. And we see Bae Gi Chol in the club, but in a private bar, in a hostess bar, because there's girls everywhere, and I'm obviously sure they're not attracted to him, so he's obviously paying for them. And they're drinking, and they're also looking at the message at the same time. And he looks at the phone and he tells them, go on, agree, click it. Do you think they can kill me? You think they can kill me?
찬성해. 찬성. 사형. 사형. 야, 사형. 씨.
And ironically, he votes for his own execution, and then as he leaves the club, he gets napped, he gets kidnapped, and when he awakens, he's in a precarious position, he's tied to a chair, half his clothes are off, and there's a man in a dog mask, and he's begging for his life, but obviously the dog mask, aka K-Tal, he's not having none of it, and he shows that 84% of populations voted for his execution.
너 왜 그래, 임마? 빨리 풀어, 이 새끼야. 너 뭐 하는 거야, 이 새끼야, 이게 지금.
So he uses some kind of device on the guy's mouth, a vice, opens it up, spreads it to an uncomfortable distance, and starts shoving the dirty money down his throat. And I think the cause of death was suffocation because he's blocked his air pipes with all the dirty money. And the following day, they find Bae Gi Chol's dead corpse at the site, sitting on a throne of dirty money with his mouth swallowing 50,000 won notes, which is approximately $50, I guess, per note. So anyway, they've got the forensics, but the forensics saying it's like a perfect crime site, that it's unlikely they'll secure any evidence from the site. So the police are stumped, but you know, Ketal, the guy in the dog mask, is here to serve them. So he puts up another video for the citizens to watch and sends it nationwide. And he's a polite murderer because he gives you the option not to watch the footage. I wish some of the regular media would give you the option. Wow, I just don't watch the media because of it. So he gives the people the option to opt out so they can click the X, so they don't need to watch the disturbing footage. And it's at this point he introduces what exactly the killing vote is. He's going to take out the trash on the 15th and 30th of the month, and if more than 50% of the population votes in favour of the execution, he will take it out swiftly. He also shows himself to be a bit of a Robin Hood because he finds and shows the public as well that not only was Bae Gi Chol released early from prison, but he has in fact been amassing vast amounts of wealth in cryptocurrency. And I forgot the exact figure, but he had a ridiculous amount. Is it 20 billion won or something like that? Basically, he's swimming in cash. So he takes that money and I think he donates it to children who have suffered at the hands of abuse. So not only is he dealing out swift justice, but he's also being a bit of a Robin Hood, which is definitely going to win the heart of the public, isn't it? He's really going to win the public vote.
그래서 지금부터 매달 15일 30일 밤 10시 18세 이상의 국민들을 대상으로 국민사형투표를 시작하겠습니다.
So at this point, the police higher-ups decide to put Moo-chan in charge of a special investigation team to take down the dog mask. Not only have they put Moo-chan in charge of the special investigation team, but they've put together a task force, and the task force seemed to be all of the undesirables at the police station. And one of the members of the team is Jo-dan, who is from the cyber team, formerly was working with Joo-hyun. But our Joo-hyun is definitely determined to get on the task force herself. So she visits the headquarters and tries to get Moo-chan's attention and tells him, I know who Ketal is. And obviously he's intrigued, so he takes her into the room. She presents the evidence from her sister's laptop, and she explains that it was the key phrase what he used in this test video, which was
무죄의 악마들.
it was the phrase 무죄 악마들, demons that were deemed innocent, that piqued her attention, because this was the same phrase that was used by the father who murdered the killer of his 8-year-old daughter, who was found innocent and sought justice by his own hands. And his name was Professor Kwon Sok-ju. Because of the case itself, the sentencing was closed, I think, so it wasn't open to the public. So there was only a few people that were able to listen to his statement. And I think Joo-hyun says that she was able to listen to that statement because she was investigating an assemblywoman, Min Young, and at that time that's how she got access to the sentencing video, and she remembers him using the exact phrase 무죄 악마들. So she thinks that Professor Sok-ju is Ketal. And then the episode ends with us going to the prison and seeing Professor Kwon Sok-ju chilling in his cell. So that was the end of episode 1 on a cliffhanger. How can a man in prison behind bars be in charge of this intricate operation? So anyway, I was intrigued, and I bet you were. Would you have clicked on the vote button? I think I would have clicked on the vote. And given the nature of the perpetrator's crime, Baek Gi-chul being a distributor of child trafficking, you wouldn't think anything of it if you got a message saying, would you agree to execute him? Because you would think it was a prank at first, wouldn't you? So you would just probably click yes. But now, this is the thing. Now you know that it wasn't a joke, it was real. They're going to execute people on the 15th and 30th, and it's up to you whether this takes part or not. Would you be willing to vote then? We'll see. Let's get into episode 2. Episode 2 is titled, Do You Know About the Killing Vote? And proudly we can say yes we do, because we've watched episode 1. Now episode 2 starts off with a scene from Professor Kwon Sok-ju's sentencing. And should we have a laugh here? Should I try and say his sentencing speech in Korean? This is gonna have everyone in stitches, isn't it? Because I'm gonna mess it up because my Korean's a bit shitty. 재판장님. 재판장님, 그리고 여기에 모인 관계자분들. 제가 그동안 한번도 제 스스로를 변론하지 않는 이유는 변우택은 죽여 막다난 자였습니다. 무엇보다도 씨발 저는 무지 악마들이 여전히 이 나라에 존재한다는 게 정말 화가 납니다.
무죄 악마들이 여전히 이 나라에 존재한다는 게 정말 화가 납니다.
피고인 유죄야! 유죄야! 유죄야!
애들 모두 유죄야! 유죄!
Anyway, I really enjoyed his final statement. Even though I'm not Old Testament and I don't particularly believe in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, I can sympathize with Kwon Sok-ju for murdering his daughter's alleged murderer, because he was deemed innocent. He didn't get any penalty for the crime, but the professor lost his daughter. I think if the judiciary doesn't find any form of punishment for such a crime, of course the victim's family is going to feel like justice hasn't been served. So I couldn't rightly sit here and say, actually it's the moot point, isn't it? There's nothing I can say. I couldn't really hold it against him. He's took action. He is willing to pay the price for the crime he's committed. That's it. I'm not gonna be like on the side of the murderer on this one. He's committed a crime, and unlike the person who murdered his daughter, he's willing to take responsibility for it. Nothing more to say. So anyway, this expression, what he said at the trial, the demons deemed innocent, was what Joo-hyun picked up on when the person in the dog mask made the statement in the test video. So she tries to deduce from this that Kwon Sok-ju is the man in the dog mask, but he's imprisoned, isn't he? So Muchan isn't totally swayed by this argument, and he points out that he's in prison, he hasn't had a visitor since he's been there, and he hasn't been in correspondence with anyone, so how could he be responsible for the killing vote? But even though he said that to her, he still investigates and decides to go to visit him in prison. But when he goes to visit him, Professor Kwon Sok-ju refuses to see Muchan, and the warden tells the detective that he can't force him to attend a visit if he doesn't want to, as he fully is aware that Professor Kwon Sok-ju is fully informed about the law and he doesn't want to face any human rights charges. So he leaves the prison empty-handed. But the special investigation team is trying to figure out what happened to Bae Gi-chul, and they're going to attend the bar he was last seen with the waiter. And the cyber team has discovered that this waiter is very dodgy, and he's been setting up some disgusting kind of spy cam in the toilet of all places, the dirty bastards. So they're going to go there to see what's going on. In the meantime, Joo-hyun has been transferred to the special investigation team, and Jo-dan's more than pleased to see her and have her on board. Muchan and the lieutenant go down to the bar to find out what this waiter knows about Bae Gi-chul. Muchan shows us his unconventional side yet again when he gets the other officer to leave the room, and just like that, he intends to use force to get the information that he wants to know. He wants to know who provided the taxi and how did the taxi know to be sitting waiting outside for him. And yes, he beats the shit out of the waiter to get the information what he wants, mentioning charges that he could face if he fails to tell him what he wants to know. After a little beating, he's more than willing to spill the beans. So they meet the taxi driver, and he seems innocent enough. He says, oh, it was him, wasn't it? It was the guy that was murdered by the killing vote. I'm sure it was him in my taxi or something to that effect. But anyway, he tells them that he got a call from the waiter. He went there to pick up the guy. He is aware that he was a VIP client. He drove him to a particular destination, parked the car, and left him inside there even though he was unconscious. He got a text message to look in the glove compartment. He looked in the glove compartment, pulled out a wad of cash, and left the victim, or his customer, in a car unattended and left. But it turns out that obviously if the passenger is unconscious, who sent the text message? But he said that the phone number matched the one who booked the taxi or something to that effect. So that's suspicious, but no harm, no foul. So anyway, this makes them aware about the car, and then they head to the junkyard to stop it being destroyed. But if they arrive too late, the evidence is gone, no chance of picking up any dashboard cam footage. The car's been crushed flat as a pancake. Meanwhile, Joo-hyun finds out the IP address of the malware that was put on her sister's computer, and it turns out that the actual location for where the IP is registered was Bae Gi-chul's hideout. So that means that the dogmask man behind the killing vote, a month ahead of Gi-chul's release, had used his address to create the test video for the killing vote. And then the countdown begins, because the next killing vote is coming soon, isn't it? Because it's on the 15th and 30th of every month at 10 p.m. Everyone's talking about it, including the kids in Jumin's school, and they're all like, yeah, I voted. Jumin makes the point that it's still murder, and then one of the students says, does it count if they're not even human? You see, this is the danger of dehumanizing people. It just means that people agree with you killing them no matter what. I guess it does make you question your morals, or it makes you murder them, doesn't it? Murder your own morals. But I think I'm like Jumin. I don't think I would vote. I just don't want any blood on my hands, to be honest. I can't say I'll shed a tear for the criminals that are executed by the killing vote, but either way, I don't want to take part in it. Does that mean I'll just be a bystander? But at this point, the teacher comes in with his fancy tumbler. He's looking a bit too slick to be working in a high school. But anyway, he comes in, he listens and overhears his students debate. They ask him if he voted in the killing vote. He turns around and tells them, what did he tell them about the privacy of the vote? And then they question him on what does he think, and he points out that, like Jumin mentioned, it is a tool that has been created by a criminal, and that the vote itself, with such a high percentage of the population agreeing with it, shows that the vast majority of people felt like Bae Gi-chul hadn't accounted for his crime sufficiently, and also highlights the fact that they are very distrustful of the judiciary. Also, at this point, he uses the term like the first vote. So one of the students, Ji-hun, points out that he seems confident that the killing vote will take place a second time because he confidently mentioned it being a first vote, which I think was an unconscious slip up by the teacher. The teacher then tries to flip the script and asks Junhyun if he thinks that the killing vote is just. To which Ji-hun maturely responds, I think it does take blood to break down and change something.
지훈이는 어때? 넌 사형 투표가 옳다고 생각하니?
뭔가를 바꾸고 무너뜨리려면 누군가 피를 흘려야 한다는 건 맞다고 생각해요.
Wow, shit. And at this point, the teacher jokes it aside, saying he didn't realize he had such an extreme anarchist in his class. So at this point, they seem to be drawing our attention to both these characters, Ji-hun and also the teacher Min-soo. Meanwhile, Joo-hyun is trying to get to the bottom of everything and try and uncover smaller pieces of evidence, and she decides to look more into Bae Gi-chul's time in prison and discovers that he was involved in some kind of unscrupulous behavior in prison and he had his own room. So she decides that they should go and visit the prison and question the people that he was trying to exploit, see if they can come up with any more information. So her and Moo-chan head to Chung'an prison and try to get some information regarding Bae Gi-chul's time inside. And she asks kind of innocuous questions. They all confess different answers to her, but the main thing what pops up is that they all keep referring to the professor. So she's curious, who is this professor exactly? But I think we all know that she knows. And each time she asks them a question, she mentions the phrase Muje Angma, Muje Angma. I think when I say Angma, it sounds like Amma. But anyway, Muje Angma, the demons that are deemed innocent. But she keeps saying this expression and asking them if they're aware of it or something. And then the prison guard goes to the warden's office and questions what's happening with the situation with the inmates being interviewed by the police detective. And at this time we see that Professor Kwon Sok-ju has been giving the warden legal advice, and if you can believe it, it's so scummy. He wants to get out of having to pay money to his kids because I think they've sided with the mom in the divorce. Talk about petty. But anyway, he's giving legal advice, so he's getting some benefits whilst he's in prison, little luxuries like being out of his cell reading the newspaper. But anyway, the prison guard mentions to Professor Kwan that she keeps using the phrase Muje Angma, so it piques his attention naturally because those are his words. So he decides to go and talk to her, and at the outset, as soon as he gets in there, he quotes the law and tries to change the power dynamic of the interview. But our Joo-hyun, she's not just a pretty face. So she asks him if he's heard of the killing vote, and he informs her that he does read the paper in here, so yeah, he's aware of what happened. She mentions that the person in charge of the killing vote used the phrase Muje Amma, which he used in the demons that are deemed innocent. It's so long, I keep saying Korean, but anyway, that he was the first person that coined this phrase, and he's like, so is that it? Two people who use the same expressions must be close. And he calls that naive, to which she fights back that when he made that statement in court, it was a pretty closed environment as it wasn't open to the public. So it limits the amount of people who would have heard him use it. The person must be linked to his case, whether it's him or someone who's related to his case. So she asks him, could he think of anyone who dislikes society, or someone who came forth with the intention of judging the people in society. So Professor Kwan gives an interesting answer. He says he doesn't know anyone who fits the bill. But if you can't figure out who the culprit is, why don't you try to concentrate on who would be the next potential victim? To which Joo-hyun gets ahead of herself and says, do you know who the next victim is going to be? Like he's going to disclose that information for free. Come on. Loose lips sink ships. Stitches get stitches. Don't you know any of these expressions when it comes to jailhouse culture? Bloody hell, neither do I only learn from TV. So we learned that Moo-chan was the little mastermind that lured Professor Kwan out of hiding and to conduct an interview by using his expression to pique his interest. On top of that, Moo-chan reports back to the chief at the station that he believes that the person in the dog mask is somehow connected to Professor Kwan's case. And if that's the case, it means that they need to pay attention also to the assemblywoman, Min Ji-young, and the boy. And I'm assuming that the boy might be Min-soo, Joo-min's teacher, because we see him at home on his little dodgy notebook. I say notebook, I've been living in Korea too long. We see him at home on his dodgy laptop and he's talking to someone who's called the Executor of all things, and I think his screen name is something like Justice. So it's very dodgy, and whatever they're talking about, his ring, what he's wearing, lights up, and then we see that he's having some problems with his heart, and then his mum rushes in, who happens to be the assemblywoman, and yeah, I guess he's got some sort of heart condition. Meanwhile, Joo-hyun's compiling a database, remembering Sok-ju's advice to try to find the next victim. So she starts selecting people who deserve to die. And then the camera zooms in on a potential female victim, and then we see her in the kitchen cooking up some beef seaweed stew. And she sprinkles in a little aqua tofana poison powder. It's not really aqua tofana. She's sprinkling in clearly some kind of toxic substance into the stew, into the broth. And then she tells her husband, oh, I've picked up some premium beef, so make sure you eat every last drop. And then she gets ready to leave and takes 2 kids out, again reminding him that he needs to eat the food, every last drop. And then no sooner does she get outside, she... pins the little kids up in the alleyway, and we see that one of the daughter's wrists are bruised, so she's been abusing the kids. Oh man, can't stand people that abuse kids. And it doesn't make you sympathetic to them being the next victim of the killing vote. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, no sooner does she try to do something to the kids, someone puts a bag over her head and she gets kidnapped into the car, abducted, dragged away like the scum that she is. Dogmas Ketal sends a message, goes live, and starts broadcasting to the public that their next victim, well, actually I don't think he releases the name of the next victim, but he releases the information about her crime, sounding like a professional news presenter.
여러분, 안녕하십니까? 많이 기다리셨죠? 지금부터 제2차 국민사형투표를 시작하겠습니다.
He's very charismatic, so I guess that would make me want to revolt. But the sad part is that before he goes live at 10 p.m, everyone's counting down like it's bloody New Year's Day. They seem more cheerful to participate in the killing vote, so it's already got everyone's attention, hasn't he? He points out that the person that he is proposing that they execute has killed all 3 of her previous husbands. One was in a car accident to which she walked out with just a scratch. Another died of supposed diabetes, so I guess she was poisoning his food. And then another, her first husband, died from drowning. And each time she got money for each of the death from the life insurance. And now she's got the 4th husband, and to make matters worse, she's made the kids sick so that she could get more money, and she's put life insurance out on her husband, her current husband, who is victim number 4. And for each of the previous husband's deaths, she didn't face any repercussions, as they were all deemed accidental deaths. But 3 dead husbands and 3 insurance policies later, that is highly suspicious, isn't it? But like I said, it's the evocative use of the child abuse allegations that are going to get people to vote, isn't it?
찬성하십니까? 아님 반대하십니까? 망설이지 말고 눌러주세요.
And nobody likes the idea of criminals profiting and walking free. So meanwhile, the cyber team's hot on the trail and they discover the name of the potential victim and release the information to the police in real time, and they try to track her down. They find her, They find Eun-kyung in a car with a bomb. After a bit of inspecting, they discover that the bomb isn't actually wired to the door, so they open it up and Detective Moo-chan gets in the seat. He sees that she's still on a call with Dog Mask Guy, but the call isn't linked to like the live stream. It's just a call, so he's listening in. So Moo-chan is aware that the bomb could detonate. He decides that he wants to limit the radius of any potential damage to the citizens and also the properties surrounding the car. So he asks Joo-hyun if she's aware of any other location that they could use, and she was reluctant at first because it's her sister's high school, but she recommends that they go there. So they go to Seorae High School, and it's only 10 minutes away in the car. He gets her to drive like a maniac to the school playground, and at the same time they make an announcement to try to evacuate the school, and the tension's really getting high and building up. And at that time, obviously, Joo-hyun is panicking about her sister because her sister's high school. She arrives at the location and she's trying to call her sister, but at the same time her sister's trying to call her frantically too. And at one point the younger sister drops her phone, and at that time Joo-hyun walks straight past her and she's like freaking out because they're calling each other at the same time, so nobody's calls going through. And then Ji-hoon happens to see Joo-hyun and tells her, your sister's over there. So she drags her sister away and puts her in a taxi and tells the taxi driver to make sure she gets home safe, and she goes back to the scene. But at this time there's only like 2 minutes or so left on the bomb when it pulls into the school playground, and Moo-chan decides to talk directly to the guy in the dog mask, and he points out that, you know, there's still time to reconsider this situation. We can try and get her put back on trial. And the dog mask guy is skeptic and just laughs it off. And then Moo-chan tries to pull a reverse Uno, and he's like, wow, you know, you said that you're out here for justice and I'm not gonna get out of this car, so what's it gonna be? Are you gonna kill an innocent police officer too? And Moo-chan puts his life on the line, and the bomb goes off, and we're left on a cliffhanger. What's gonna happen now? Is the detective Moo-chan alive? I hope he is, because it's too early to take out one of the main characters, is it? But it's not impossible, it's not impossible. And then on top of that, is Professor Kwan connected to the killing vault? And if he is, how is he executing it from behind the prison walls? And then thirdly, what is the connection between Min-soo and his mom and the professor? So are they connected to his daughter's crime, and if so, how? And then there's just like so many questions. Would you have been excited counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to just press the execution button and have someone taken out? I'm not sure if I could do the vote. I don't think I've got the guts. I mean, like I said, the people who have been put forward for the execution, I can't say I sympathize with them. I wouldn't shed a tear if they died, but I just don't want it to have anything to do with me. I think that's fair enough. I guess I've established that I would be a bystander in the killing vault. So anyway, I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in episode 3. I can't wait. Who is in the dog mask? And who's going to be the next victim? Anyway, share your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao, annyeong.